Hello and welcome to SVG Europe's Motorsport Show 2020, sponsored by LiveView. My name is Abi Stephens and I'm a TV sports presenter, and I'm most often at the heart of major motorsport championships around the globe. But since my last event was back in March in Mexico at the World Rally Championship, it is an absolute pleasure to be back talking all things motorsport again. But as we've been really evaluating in the wake of COVID-19, motorsport has roared back into life inside this new normal. But what does that really mean for the broadcasters, the producers, the promoters? How are the OB trucks set up for health and safety? What are the operators doing to maximize coverage, engage the fans, and minimize the risk? And what about the role of remote production? Join me for the next couple of hours as we address some of these questions, particularly in the context of Formula One, NASCAR, and MotoGP. As well as assessing the present, we'll also be contemplating the future, taking a look at what broadcasting and technical innovations might be around the corner. So I'm joining you from Babington House in the beautiful county of Somerset, and I'm coming to you via the cloud-based vMix and Singular graphics platforms, which are being managed by SVG and technicians based in Munich at Sky Germany. A massive shout out to you all. This would not be possible without you. Now, during today's show, we'll have 2 live sessions, and both of them have the opportunity for Q&As. So if you have any questions for any of our guest speakers or for our title sponsor, LiveView, please send them to questions@sportsvideo.org or use the chat facility in YouTube, and we'll try and answer as many as we can. If you're using Twitter, use the hashtag Motorsport Show 2020. Okay, let's take a look at what's coming up on today's show. We will make a flying start with title sponsor LiveView and their US Director of LiveView Sports Sales, Janelle Fleming. We'll then explore the return of Formula One with Dean Locke from F1, Sky Sports Carl Vaux, and former Formula One driver Ralf Schumacher. The focus will then turn to NASCAR with an interview with Steve Stum. And SVG Europe and SVG in the US have been discussing this idea with Formula One and NASCAR for quite some time. So it's brilliant to have both involved, and they give this event a real global perspective. As we head towards the finish line, we'll be looking at the return of MotoGP with North One Series Editor Kevin Brown. And then on a final straight, we'll close proceedings with Gravity Media's Senior Technical Project Manager Ryan Campbell, who will provide an insight into Whisper's Formula One coverage for Channel 4. It's a packed lineup with plenty to talk about, I'm sure you'll agree. Now, as the engines begin to rev up, I can hear them, and everyone's lining up on the grid, the lights are about to go out. So let's head straight to Janelle Fleming, Director of LiveView Sports Sales. Janelle's in pole position, I'm going to get every analogy in here, to discuss how LiveView technology can satisfy remote production demands and help enrich motorsport production.
Hi, I'm Janelle Fleming, the Director of Sales for the sports team here at LiveView. For those of you who don't know, LiveView provides portable encoding equipment that allows you to broadcast live from virtually anywhere using bonded cellular technology. Having come to dominate the news gathering market, LiveView is in demand across the sports sector, especially in the high-revving world of motorsports. LiveView has gained great traction across motorsports, both 2- and 4-wheel, bringing viewers to where the action is. Our powerful, flexible, and robust content gathering solutions enrich motorsports productions with the highest quality, reliable, multi-camera capabilities, capturing new angles and more content to enhance the fan experience and engagement, and providing dynamic content to bring the speed and exhilaration of motorsports around the world to viewers wherever they may be. Ideally suited to satisfy remote production demands, especially in today's world of social distancing and reduced budgets, LiveView delivers flawless and dynamic HD 1080p 60 and 4K HEVC live video for every type of sporting event, bringing our leading technology to the world of sports broadcasting. More about our new game-changing first production level field unit shortly. we've partnered with the FIA to expand their coverage of the World Rally Championship, allowing them to significantly increase the energy of their content, innovating to attract new audiences. Grip has created both the G1 single-seater Formula car and has also created the G1 series in Italy, where LiveView provides a compelling, cost-effective way to deliver a flawless HD live video experience from inside the racing cars, around the tracks, and from drones. Without the need for any complex infrastructure, Grip developed a database content solution for Motorsport Series. It makes racing vehicles smart and connected, and uses the data collected to create engaging layers and insights using AI and deep analysis for fans and drivers. Using remote production capabilities, we also worked with the organizers of the 2018 Silkway Off-Road Rally in Russia to bring the 8-day event to the viewers. Traveling along this historic route provides a range of challenges for drivers and film crews alike, but with LiveView, all of the drama of the event was captured, including from a helicopter. Then there's the Dust and Daredevil Mint 400. This 100-mile-long desert race in the US was recently captured from angles never before seen, including views from inside a truck bouncing along at 100 miles per hour. The Mint 400 is renowned as the toughest race in North America. In 2019, we worked with BBC Sport in Northern Ireland on their outstanding coverage of the madness that is the Motorcycle Road Racing Series, which includes the famous Northwest 200 and the Ulster Grand Prix. Now, if you haven't heard, we've just launched the new LU800, the first ever production-level field unit. This is the next generation of content gathering technology, combining multi-camera production with mission-critical transmission over LTE, and for the first time ever, native 5G networks. The LU800 changes the rules of the game for live and dynamic sports productions. The unit also offers the highest quality video performance with up to 4K P60, 10-bit HDR transmission for optimal color depth and richness, as well as up to 16 audio channels for high-end productions. The LU800 offers unlimited possibilities for customers looking to enrich their productions and cover more events at a fraction of the cost compared to traditional transmission methods, proving again that LiveView is reinventing live sports coverage.
Thank you, Janelle and the team at LiveView. Fascinating to hear about how their technology is being used to enhance motorsport coverage and particularly capture the speed that is motorsport, because that's what we love about it, of course. Right, it is almost time to have our first live guest on air, and we are starting with Formula One. Now, we're going to be doing this in two parts. Firstly, I'll talk to F1's Director of Broadcast and Media, Dean Locke, who is live from Silverstone, about how the return of Formula One has been and also how it will continue to evolve over the coming months. Then I'll chat to Carl Volk, Sky Germany's Director of Editorial and Digital for Live Sports, about how the broadcaster is covering the action both on and off the track. Carl will be joined by our very special guest. We don't know where he's going to be, Ralf Schumacher. I think he's going to be live from his home. We're hoping so. And we'll hear from Ralf about life inside a COVID-safe Formula One bubble. Remember, if you have any questions, put them in the YouTube chat or email them to questions@sportsvideo.org. So, it is my great pleasure to introduce our very first guest, Formula One's Dean Locke, who is joining us live from Silverstone. Dean, hi. Thanks so much for being with us. Okay, Dean, we're going to start by talking about remote production, because it's, it's a massive talking point, but particularly how you at F1 achieved what was originally planned to be a year-long process in just 7 weeks.
Hi, Abby. Good afternoon. Yeah, here from a relatively sunny Silverstone, as normal. Yes, we are doing remote. We brought that forward quite dramatically with the world pandemic and what we need to do to get back on site, to get back to racing. And it's gone well. It was, I think, it was an almighty challenge, as you said, to do it in the time frame and under some of the restrictions we had around working. And we've got more phases to come as part of that broadcast and part of that operation, I think, really. And we'll probably be doing that over the next year or so. There are some temporary elements to it. OB truck on site, but that will go in a couple of races' time, and we build the production area inside our bespoke broadcast centre. And then also at our leader technical thing here in Kent, there's a lot of work to do still back there, but it's working. We're really happy with it.
Oh, and it's so brilliant to see you back on air. So since you have been back, what have been the major learnings and, dare I say, challenges?
Oh, it's a long list. Putting on a Formula One race under these circumstances is very difficult. You know, we're a big travelling circus. There's a lot of people, so we had to reduce numbers. That was one of our key points, I think. And then ask our broadcasters to not be on site and look at their workflows and how they might be able to do things differently, and some of our other partners. So it was an obvious choice to do remote operation because that reduced our numbers, but also reduced the risk to the crew and some of our staff as well, and bring that forward, as we said, the way we did it. The major challenge is that everything's changing, isn't it? It's such a fluid situation, as we're seeing even right now, aren't we, with some surges in Spain and France. And we're all about travelling, and access to these countries, and that is one of the biggest challenges. And I think what we're seeing now is we're not able to release a calendar. We're having to release it in stages, and which we've done quite successful, and we're about to sort of probably release the next part, hopefully. But that, yeah, I think that the changing nature of the pandemic and the way countries are responding, and in different situations of the pandemic, I think has been the real challenge.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask you definitely about the calendar. You don't have to give an exclusive on here, but just the challenges and the opportunities of having, like you say, what is a fluid season. But when we think it's 4 races in 3 different territories, how are you dealing with the different demands of different countries and protocols, especially having to do it quickly when crews are moving from location to location?
Yeah, really, that is the bulk of the work, and people have been working, since Australia on this solely, and there hasn't been many days off, I can guarantee you that. I think also, don't forget, there's a lot of teams coming from outside the UK, so we have Italian teams, we have a Swiss team, and again, those different countries have different regulations of coming back to their base, and, quarantine and not quarantine, exemptions to quarantine, which I seem to be hearing a lot about. And then we also have our junior series, not to be forgotten. Formula 2, which has a lot of teams in Spain and Italy. Formula 3 and Porsche Supercup, across Germany. So, yes, it's just moving. We have 4 calls a week, just discussing this very topic. 10 o'clock on 10 o'clock on those days, and one can change from another. And and as we're seeing, we sort of, as quick as we can, making decisions which territories we're going, which territories we're not. Some, I must say that there's been some brilliant from our promoter partners. They've been really supportive of what they can do, what they can't do. Some, coming to the challenge of putting 2 races on in 2 weeks, and Austria putting their hand up first to say, we will welcome you here, and they did a fantastic job of the event. I think also, there's some positives as well. I'm trying to look at some of the positives. The positives of going to places like Mugello, which I think people are really excited to see Formula One at a track like Mugello, and Portimao. People that know some of these circuits will know it'd be a challenge for Formula One, but that's good, and it's good to challenge some of our drivers as well to do these different tracks. So there's a lot of excitement of going to these circuits and tracks that we either haven't been before or haven't been for a few years. And I think that's one upside, to the story, and why this season will be quite unique in a lot of ways.
No, absolutely, and got the return to Imola as well. It could be brilliant, especially for certain teams, like you say, Mugello, and where we're going with Ferrari and having their anniversary. We'll talk about the anniversary at Silverstone. Yeah,
well, we have an anniversary here at Silverstone, which is great because that's the anniversary of Formula One and at the first racetrack. And then also, as you just said, Ferrari have their 1000th race in Mugello, which that's worked out really well for them, and they're really excited about some of the activities they're going to put out, some historical cars, and hopefully make it a bit of a spectacle weekend and good viewing.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be. Now, you've mentioned having to make some decisions with real speed. Last weekend at the British Grand Prix, Sergio Perez tested positive. How did you successfully manage and isolate that case, Dean, so that the race was able to go ahead?
Yes, so we were expecting some positives, and we had put a lot of procedures into that being critical people. Well, that was certainly a critical person. I think in many ways, really. I mean, firstly, it's really good that Sergio's healthy. I think it was also, you know, a good wake-up call that that this pandemic affects everybody, and nobody's immune to it. And it was a very high-profile driver in the sport to test positive. I think there is a success story to it in that all our procedures were really effective, really worked. It had very minimal contact with anyone, and the testing before we went into a race, you know, to get into the bubble. I talk a lot about bubbles, but getting into the bubble of the Formula One, and then we're testing every 4 days as well. So, you know, it did really kind of put those procedures up and say that they worked really well. And even the very, people that I think he'd had contact with, they were, quick tests on them, and they were back to work very, very quickly as well. So massive shame for Sergio. We were very lucky to be able to get Hulkenberg in to drive the car very quickly. And again, the procedures to get him off the plane, it was crazy. I think it was like 11 minutes from turning up at the circuit once he had received his negative test to being actually in the car was a big story as well, a big success story. But yeah, really pleased with the procedures we put that looked very draconian at first, actually has worked really well. And an awful lot of work we've got into those procedures from the FIA and Formula One and the teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So how will this continue then, Dean? How will you have your current strategy, which is operating remotely from Biggin Hill with a smaller team on site? How will it develop beyond this season?
I think, as I said, we'd already planned to do this as part of our technical roadmap to do this as an operation anyway. And it's not just the broadcasting, it's timing, it's content delivery, it's all across our operation. And it's the way we wanted to go, and I think we'll obviously continue that way. We've made that jump, and we're really happy with it. And we will now refine and develop. Technically, we're in a really good place, and we have some more developments across for the next couple of seasons to be able to push that a little bit further. And I think we've got to look at our base in the M&TC at Biggin Hill in Kent. We've got to look at the environment that people that are used to travelling on the road are now travelling to Biggin Hill in Kent, and we need to look at that a bit further and make some changes along the line. But we can't rush those through. That's the sort of mid-term to long-term changes to do that. And there are some technical improvements we can do, whether that's distribution to our broadcast partners, making that easier for them, and also allowing them to do more remote, because I think quite a few of them, we've had to reduce their numbers on site, and they've also looked at some of their workflows and how they operate around the race weekend. And I think they're pleased with some of the success around that and how we can help them and how we can sort of support them more, so they have to have less people on site as well.
Yeah, we mentioned at the start that we have questions coming in from the audience as well, and I might actually straight away ask that, because one's come in and said, is it actually easier to get the job done with fewer people around the paddock?
That's a good question. Yes, you could definitely walk places faster and you can find people quicker. I think we're lucky as Formula One that the crowd are so important, and we're here at Silverstone where we get hundreds of thousands of crowds over the weekend, and they're brilliant, and they turn up at 4 o'clock in the morning, don't they? And they're excellent crowds, and we have that in Monza, and certainly other tracks. But the racing noise, we don't need fan noise quite as much, apart from around podiums and grids. And actually, the grids are busy. The grids are really busy with all the mechanics. There's still a lot of people around. So, you know, for an outside viewer, they're going to see empty grandstands and they're going to see some less impact that we're able to do in certain tracks like this. But we'll still be able to put on a really good spectacle of an event. We had the Spitfire flyover last weekend, and in Austria they did some brilliant events around that as well. So as a broadcast, still looks good. I think I still miss people around. So yes, you can get quicker, you can find people easier, and you certainly can drive into the track a lot easier, and or get back to the hotel a lot quicker. So yes, of course, but I miss them. I miss the busy paddock, I miss the buzz of it, and I think that's what part of Formula One is. You know, that whole 4 days of the event and the people here and the fans outside. I really miss that.
Yeah, I mean, it was Lewis, wasn't it, that said at the weekend, becoming the most successful driver in terms of his home Grand Prix wins, just hearing the roar of the audience there and the fans, just it creates something special, doesn't it? But it's still brilliant that this is all taking place and how remarkable it is, and that was a remarkable last lap of the British Grand Prix that is taking place under these circumstances. So what other innovations might we look forward to then, Dean?
I think, and it's also linked to remote, is that we always wanted to do remote operations, and I say that, also outside of broadcasting, but what we can benefit to the viewer and what we can benefit to our operations. So how can we make it better? It isn't just about having less people on site originally. It is now, because, we need to look at the welfare of our staff and crew. But actually moving forward, how can we make our products better that we're not having to move it? It's very strange being in Silverstone and then no D-rig and then coming back to Silverstone. A lot of people really like the no D-rig part. But, that does have advantages. I mean, even between these 2 events, we've made a couple of subtle changes to our camera layout that we noticed last weekend that wasn't quite right. We're able to do that. So, and the remote side, we're able to fix things. We don't have engineers and people on the road necessarily, or flying back from one country ready to fly out again. So they're on site to be able to test things on a Tuesday before an event. So I think we are already seeing some advantages. We've built some studios at M&TC to use for some content programming around that. We've upscaled a lot of our delivery mechanisms to broadcasters, so we're able to deliver faster and better content to them. So there's certain areas where I think they would already see a benefit in that, and I think long term we'd just be able to use things differently. So whether that's a new graphics package or whether it's a new audio solution, I think they will be easier in the remote operation side, because we will be based in one place, and we won't be packing it up, moving it again. And also, when I first joined Formula One, there were 16 races a year. We're hitting 21, 22. That's pretty hard work. So having that central base that we can develop and build technical infrastructure, I think is a massive advantage.
Yeah. There's another question come through, and there was always going to be one around monies. So is remote production cheaper or more expensive than the traditional way of doing things? That's come from one of our viewers.
Tough questions, aren't they? So again, as I said, we weren't really doing it necessarily. We did it straight away for the welfare of the people. It wasn't really necessarily a question about money. I think it will be. I think it will be more efficient, and it will be potentially cheaper. But that wasn't the reason why we did it, even in this situation. And it wasn't in our technical roadmap necessarily. It was actually to make it better and give us more functionality to be able to do more rather than. But we need a lot of connectivity, and whilst connectivity costs are coming down, they are still expensive. We still have a big operation actually on site as well to support all our partners and broadcasters. So we're not sort of fully remote. It's difficult to assess in this situation because freight is more expensive at the moment. Travel and hotels are really difficult because some hotels aren't even open, are they? And actually asking hotels to open, and also trying to keep within the bubble, so we're keeping all the crew together in certain hotels, and really having that hotel for ourselves quite often, all eating within the hotels and all that. So it's a tough question to answer. Maybe I can answer that next year, but that wasn't, it wasn't the decision to go remote.
Yeah. So last question then, Dean, we'll talk about those milestones again, is 70th anniversary this weekend at Silverstone. How are you marking the occasion?
Well, so for a little while it got forgotten about. Then we were desperately hoping we'd be in Silverstone for it. There's some bespoke edits that are going out that are still being changed now, unfortunately. I know that Sky are on site. They're doing some Brit stuff, some Sterling Moss cars going around the track. There are some slight different elements to the national anthem and some elements around there. We've already changed our titles this year to incorporate kind of rich history of 70 years, and across all of our platforms. There's a lot going out, and there's a lot of the digital and social media elements to it, whether that's graphical or content based, is actually trying to look at the sort of rich past, and we own a huge archive, and actually trying to get that archive out. We have a slight twist to the slight change to how we open the show as well, which we're working with the broadcasters on, incorporating that into their shows. And yeah, excited about it. 70 years, long time.
Yeah, it's a major milestone. Well, we look forward to that. And Dean, thank you so much, because we spent the last few days getting this technology up and running, and you've been very generous with your time and making sure that we can get you live at Silverstone, which is no doubt going to be a massive, busy weekend, even though it is quicker to get around.
Yes, no, it's there's a little bit of rain in the air this morning, so that's always quite exciting for the races, even if we don't have the tyres.
Yeah, yeah, let's add some more jeopardy. Dean, thank you so much, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thanks, Abby.
Okay, so before I talk to Carl and to Ralph next about Formula One in Sky Germany, here's a peek of the thrills and spills of Formula One from Sky Germany. So good. Okay, it's now with great pleasure that I get to welcome Carl Volk, Sky Germany's VP of Sports Editorial, from his office in Munich, and our very special guest, Ralph Schumacher, who's live from, well, he'll tell us where he's live from because we've been trying to track him down, but welcome to both of you. Well, Ralph, where are you talking to us from?
I'm in South of France at present, so it's not the office. I just took a few days off, and I tried to manage to get back to UK today, but it was a bit difficult from the French side, so I had to stay here. But nevertheless, follow it from outside then.
Okay, well, it's brilliant to have you both. Carl, from a broadcasting perspective, let's start with you then. What have you had to do to get Formula One back on air this season?
Oh, a lot of things. Let's talk about, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot for the invitation. And I have to do a little thing because I use the office of Sandro Raitano. Maybe you heard his name. And I have to say this picture is Sandro's picture, but it's much more nicer than mine. And for you all, I took the nicest picture in our office. So thanks to Sandro. Of course, Corona has a very, very big impact on all of our lives, on our private lives, on our families, friends, and everything. And of course, on our jobs. And this is broadcasting. And from a broadcast view, it is a very big challenge. Just imagine a normal gallery, how you sit together in the gallery and how big and tall these rooms and how many people and engineers sit together in one of these galleries. So first thing is to make it safe for everyone. We are a people business. We're working with people. People are afraid of what is coming up with Corona, even in the early days when nobody knows what will come up. So the first step we have to do is make it safe for everyone. We bring a lot of people in home office in a very short time. And we built up in our broadcast center a lot of plexiglasses, have to check, is the meter 52 meter distance between the people. This was a very big challenge. And of course, as you know, Sky Sport News is a 24/7 channel in Germany, make a sports channels without sports happening. So we have to bring program in there, and even with all these personnel stuff and organization stuff, we do fever measuring when you come to the office, that everybody feels safe and can do his work. And the next step is, what can we do? What is the program? And this was, I think, very, very good learnings from the pandemic stuff, is that you can do a lot of things with remote stuff, with bringing people with easy technology, to look behind their life situations. For example, we do a motorsport live show warm up every week just to keep our subscribers up to date, what is happening, what is going on in Formula One. And we had a lot of interviews, and Ralph was nearly from every moment reachable for us to tell how is the situation in motorsport. Yeah, that's maybe the biggest challenge. And then if you bring it to the track when the restart is, we are lucky with Sky Germany that we do remote anyway. So our commentator and experts sitting in Munich anyway, and we just have a small unit on track. But if you see on the whole Sky group with Italy, Sky UK and us, we use a lot of synergies in this, and we have to bring down the people size on the track to help the system from nearly 60 people to 20 and a few. So we have the people on track, and this is a very big challenge because the viewers and subscribers are expecting a good program. They pay for program, or pay TV is our business, so we have to bring very good program, and this is a very big challenge. And from Sky Germany's perspective, there's a thank you to Sky UK, which help us with a lot of things. At the moment, we are just with 2 people at the track, and the rest comes up from Munich in remote, and it works well. But of course, we use the interviews from Sky UK, Sky Italy. We share a lot of stuff like this. This is maybe the biggest challenge. To make it safe for everyone. Sport is the nicest thing below the real important thing. But if a pandemic is coming up, you have to have a very, very special look. And if it's safe for everyone, is every life safe? Yeah.
Ralph, let's get your viewpoint on those challenges, but what they've been like for you when you have been trackside.
Well, I mean, I've been very lucky due to my son being racing there. I was, let's say, in the paddock, but even though I couldn't get to the Formula One paddock as usual, so there was not, from outside, okay, my contacts. Then when you go into the pits, okay, you see the cars, you see the people working. But what they did at the track was really professional, because you have to see, in Austria, when we had the first few races, there was absolute normal life all around, but in Formula One we have to wear the masks, stay away from people, have this content tests and everything done. And I have to say, for me, I've felt safe at all times, and I have to say people really looked after it. In all the paddocks, you could tell the mechanics took gap in Formula 2, Formula 3, the drivers. So it was really nice to see that they realized how important it was to keep it safe, healthy, in order to do what they love, and this is doing this sport. And I think we have been very fortunate to be allowed to do racing at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk about the bubbles in just a moment. But Carl, you mentioned it. This, for Sky Germany, pay TV, what has the reaction been like from your fans, from your viewers?
So we are in the very lucky position that we are not only sports. Sky is able to bring fiction to sports fans, and if you just have a sport package, we bring fiction for free to the sports subscribers. We do for the people who have the whole package. We do the normally pay-per-view stuff for free, and so that we said, okay, we know we are not bringing up the normal stuff because we can't do it. It's not happening at this moment. But the reaction of our subscribers was very, very good. We don't lose that much people because we bring up other programs, and they see, for example, we do Bundesliga is very huge in Germany. We do a Bundesliga live show every day. Of course, Bundesliga is not happening, but we're talking about and bringing up and bringing in the first Corona soccer player in Germany was in our program and all this stuff. So we keep the interest high and bring other footage and fiction to the people, and the reaction was very, very okay. Of course, you always find a few which said, okay, there's not things you promised me to be, but the people understand that it's not a Sky fail to have no sports in there.
Yeah, I think that is one thing, isn't it? The viewers being patient and understanding through this whole time, which, you have to be.
And even we bring up old Grand Prix, for example. We show Grand Prix from Ralf Schumacher and his brother, and the people even watch it, Ralf.
In black and white, I guess, yeah.
Nearly.
Oh,
Blue and white. Wasn't it blue and white
Ralph,
the most part?
No, I meant a picture, but anyway.
Yeah, sure.
well, we're going to get to you about what it is. You've mentioned it briefly about your experience trackside, but what it's like being in a COVID-safe Formula One bubble. But Carl, just from your point of view, what has the experience of these bubbles been like for you and the team that you're operating?
So the first thing is you have to bring the people on longer journeys, and you can't set someone on a Monday in Sky Sport News set in Munich and then bringing up on Thursday to the track in Austria. He has to go in 40 days and has to do the tests, and of course the people have to take longer times for this. It's just from a planning situation. You need more people for this bubble life. And of course, you need the people who said, "Okay, I love my job that much that I can do. I leave my family for 2 weeks and want to be a reporter at Austria, for example." But maybe we ask one who is in the bubble with his son.
Yeah, exactly, Ralph. Let's hear, what is it like inside, living and working inside these bubbles?
I mean, I have to say, it was no real problem for us. Everything runs pretty normal. I mean, I'm used to wash my hands and to keep distance to people more if I can. And life is pretty normal. And I have to say one thing. For me, it's because I started to work with Sky last year. And we did pretty much everything we can and we could to let's say get the information across, entertain people. But now with this new life, even you can go out with your mobile phone. I did so many Skype things, just from the track, from somewhere else, to try and get the information across. And if I see that small group that's trying to work every weekend now to entertain, because Carl said there's not a lot of sport. I mean, we're talking about 30 hours motorsport from Friday to Sunday.
No, at the moment,
with a hand.
Talk about the gap.
No, I'm just saying, yeah. And with a handful of people, you can feel the motivation, and we try to get all information from everywhere. And I really enjoy it. It's a challenge to bring this across to the people where we are, how we do it, how we have to do it, and get the information. And on the German side, obviously, we're a bit more lucky. Having Sebastian in a difficult situation, so everybody's interested in that also. So we have some information to get across. That's pretty nice.
Yeah. And how does it impact you though, Ralph, from the other roles that you hold in motorsport? So, as a driver, mentor, but also as a father. You mentioned your son David. He's racing in Formula 3. How does it impact those areas too?
It's as I said, the rule is pretty simple for everybody. Some teams are, all the teams have to go back to the hotel and stay in there. For me personally, it's a bit difficult because I'm traveling in between. So, I have to be really careful also. So I do frequent tests all 3 days, 4 days, because, imagine I bring something to the track or from the track to my team at Sky. So, and especially to David, so he couldn't race. So you have to be extra careful. But other than that, I have to say for me, there is no difference, to be honest.
Am I allowed to say that, Ralph, that you in Austria that you park your camper van in turn 1?
Yeah, okay.
Do your cooking yourself? And
Okay, that's what I said. Sorry, I can explain that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, not only us, David and I, in Silverstone, there's even 2 campers, to be honest, but that's for another reason. But yes, we decided this year to stay in a camper at the track to minimize all the risks. I go for shopping, I cook myself. Yeah, that's true. But I love cooking myself anyway, so no worries.
Even live in our program.
You two are funny. How do you keep each other under control when you're doing a live show? You get the upper hand.
So good.
Very amusing.
You should listen to us once. It would be good.
I will. I absolutely will. My German's not too bad either. Okay, before we come back to you, Carl, let's take a look at some of the spectacular technologies you've included in your coverage of Formula One.
Yeah,
Carl, data, graphics, that's what you're doing, and you do it brilliantly. In-car cameras, they've all a key part of Formula One now. It's such a data-rich sport. What do the innovations add to the Formula One coverage?
Yeah, if we just look at 3 seconds back, if you see, for example, the virtual reality into the halo with this rotation speed, gear setting, and even this year you have a little picture when you have the view from the driver in front. You even have a little window in there where you can see the review camera. It's amazing what the world feed still is doing. And there are coming up new things every year from FOM. If we see, was it Silverstone last week where we have this big wall where Nico Rosberg was screening when Hamilton across this screen, and the world feed which FOM is offering is very, very good. There are so many cameras, very good perspectives on this, as we see in the little movie, and this is excellent job from FOM, and our viewers loved it. You know, if in Germany, even last weekend, we reached more than 1 million people in pay TV with all our motorsport in the weekend, and and RTL, not forget RTL, over, I guess, 4.5 million. There's still a lot of people loving what we are doing, and with Ralph and my team, as you see in the little package before, we try to bring it near to analyze. Is Vettel looking? Make a how do you name it, Ralph? Loop on is he watching left side? Or Ralph explains the car when we make it bigger and said, okay, the ears go there. This is why he has so much downforce, and this is what we're doing. And I think it's still a very interesting sport.
Yeah, absolutely. Ralph, I'm going to come on to some questions from the audience, but just one more point before we do that. Obviously, it's brilliant news that you guys in Germany have now exclusive Formula One rights on the next 4 years. So first of all, congratulations. Cole, what opportunities does that open up?
It's amazing for us. For more than 20 years, there were always two challenges. As I mentioned for a second, RTL is still there. And from the next year on, we are the only one. And hope, of course, we can talk about business. If we are pay TV, of course, we want to have new subscribers. But for us as a broadcast and editorial team, it's a big chance to raise up our program. We want to do more, and we see, and it includes F2 and F3, and we see the rates of these races are very good. The people are interested in the little Schumachers, or in Beckmann wins the Formula 3, the F3 Grand Prix last weekend. And this is a very big opportunity to raise up our program, and very important for us is the view of 360 degrees, because we have Sky Sport DE, we have social media, and at the moment it's very restricted what we can do free to air. As I mentioned before, we have the Sky Sport News, which is in Germany free to air. At the moment we are just to do a few minutes of the world feed, because RTL is a free TV. And the next year we are allowed to do nearly everything. We will do pre-shows on Thursdays before, we will do on Sundays. Of course, the main product is the pay TV, but we will shoulder this with our free TV outlets just to bring more people back to Formula One. And we do 24/7 channel for Formula One from how many people are listening? I guess January, hopefully January, latest to the start of the Formula One. But I think in January we will raise up this channel, and this is very huge for us and what we are doing right now. And we search for good experts, but maybe we find one.
Maybe
he's not listening after.
I heard it.
Why should I react on that one?
No, just kidding.
See, that's the mark of a brilliant sportsman. Doesn't react under pressure. Okay, we've had some questions that have come in from viewers. So I'm going to ask you this one, Ralph. Is Mercedes' continued domination in Formula One a good or a bad thing from both a broadcaster's and a fan's point of view?
Well, what should I say? I mean, to be fair, because I see it from both sides. I think what Mercedes is doing, and especially the team is doing, is incredible, and that needs so much work and love and time spending on that, what they're doing. You know, I think we all should respect that, and I'm really happy for them. Happy for Lewis, what he's doing is amazing also. The only problem is it tends to get from time to time boring for us because people say, okay, what should I watch? 1 and 2 is clear anyway. So see what the rest is doing. But we had some very interesting races this year, I have to say, racing this year. And I hope that there will be no issue with this, let's say, protest going on at the moment about Racing Point. And because that could be very important for Formula One, that for, let's say, lower budget teams, they have a chance to have good cars, good racing equipment to race into, especially with young guys. You don't always need to win, but it was so interesting if a young driver comes in and really challenging the old, let's say, the experienced ones, and that we can have. I don't think we can stop Mercedes, and honestly, I don't think that we ever saw the true potential they're playing at that moment, to be honest, from my point of view.
Yeah, it's a very honest point of view. Thank you. Okay, I've got some more technical-based questions. Carl, so have you considered adding a driver's eye camera like they do in Formula E?
This is part of not from Sky Germany, but of course we talk to FOM how they raise up the pictures, but I even don't know because it's a question to FOM, not to the broadcasters who are getting the word feed from the FOM. Sorry, I don't know, but it's a good idea. I'll pass them through to the FOM.
Hey, see, this is good. This is even giving you more creative options going forward. I'll keep on the technical questions.
Noticed.
Do you have any plans for more use of AR, VR in your Formula One output? And if so, what?
We're thinking. This is the moment where I can't talk about it. We know that we got the rights for the next 3 years since, is it 4 or 6 weeks? And then was a restart and was the triple headers now. So there's a lot of work for the Formula One team. But in exactly these days, we start to think about what we are doing next year. And we know that we have a big opportunity because we are the only one in Germany. And we are thinking of raising up the program. But yeah, I believe in remote, as Dean, the former speaker, said, remote is a good thing from a lot of perspective, and so why not? Maybe nothing is decided yet, but maybe we have a virtual studio in Munich, or we decided not to do. However, what is the best program for our subscribers? It's that when we say, okay, a virtual Formula One car helps us and Ralph to explain to the people what is really happening in there, then it's an opportunity, of course. But it's too early to say this because we just know it for a few weeks. Sorry.
Yeah, no, fair play. Carl, you're getting bombarded with a few questions here. Ralph, you can sit back and relax. So a final question to Carl, and I will bring Ralph in. What have you done, Carl, if anything, to accommodate for the lack of fans at the circuits? And is this less of an issue for Formula One than for other sports? Dean mentioned, unlike football, you don't need audio put in, that, it sounds the cars are good enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in football, we manage it very good. We sell it even to the UEFA, so who is watching Champions League the next days. Sky Germany did the sound option and for the UEFA Champions League. Very good story for us. But yes, it is. But anyhow, we know that fan engagement is playing an even bigger role every day by day. And in the first step, we bring in the opportunity for our fans to set a little video with a question to our program, and we're thinking of additional feeds. Nowadays we have 2 feeds, a normal world feed, and we have these multi-channel where you can see the onboards and the tracker and all these stuff. And we're thinking about other feeds where we go in contact with the fans during the race. Maybe ask. We did a pilot during the Bundesliga restart called Couchkurve in Germany, where the fans are active in the program just as a third option, or maybe we do a second device stuff where the fans can talk to an expert during the race and ask what is happening and I'm interested in, and is it a good or a bad overtaking, or we're thinking of these, hopefully.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, Ralph, I'm going to come to you then for the more topical questions. First of all, you mentioned Sebastian Vettel. If you were, question is coming from me in the spontaneous moment, but if you were giving him advice, Ralph, what would you suggest for next season?
Well, I think he definitely should stay because imagine he would stop now because he's found his potential and he had a very difficult time at Ferrari. And Ferrari, they have to analyze themselves. What they did to their drivers, to the team, the last 2 years, it was a disaster. And then announcing a driver change before the year starts. I mean, honestly, I've never seen this in my life, how to manage the personnel and the biggest or the most paid personnel also. So I don't know what's happening in their mind there. So I think he can have a chance. From what I said, if this rule would be changed, allowed or whatever, then he could have a good chance at Alpha Tauri. He could have a good chance at Racing Point. And I'm sure with his experience, being able to lead the team, he could do something really good. Maybe not winning against Lewis, because that would be perfect. I mean, we in Germany would love to see him next to Lewis, obviously. It would be a big story for all of us, but this doesn't seem to happen yet. We'll see.
Yeah. Candid answer. Thank you, Ralph. Last question then. We can't go without talking about this weekend, and it marks 7 decades of Formula One. We've talked about Mercedes dominance, but what can we look forward to this weekend? Can we have a more spectacular last lap that we saw last weekend?
Who's going to answer that? You, Carl, or me?
Go on, Ralph.
No, you are the expert.
No,
Go,
I'm not the expert. No. I think it was. I mean, I always see it from an expert point of view, and I have to say, obviously what happened with the tire situation, that interests me more. I think it was bits and pieces, but nothing is for sure. Nothing is 100% because Silverstone is a very fast track, so let's wait and see what's happening there. From a German point of view, I would love to see Hülkenberg in the car to see what he can do in this car if Sergio is not coming back, which I read is possible overnight. The decision will be taken tomorrow. And then again, Verstappen was strong. So let's see what's happening there. That would be exciting. And we keep always the fingers crossed for our Sebastian Vettel. That's what we need for our spectators too.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on and being so honest with your answers and your insight. Good luck for the next 4 years. Carl, good luck finding an expert. And Ralph, thank you so much.
Right.
Keep
a
being
pleasure.
busy, Ralph.
Okay, guess my phone is ringing in a second.
Innovative. Gentlemen, thank you, and enjoy the rest of the season. Have fun this weekend.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you to Carl and to Ralph. I could continue speaking to them all day. There were so much fun between the two of them. Okay, it is time to talk NASCAR. And last week, Ken Kirschbaumer, who is SVG's executive director, he got an exclusive interview with Steve Stum, NASCAR Production Vice President of Operations and Technical Production. Let's take a listen.
Chains, I'm moving along, but it's calling my name. Did I inherit this pain? Keep pulling me close every time I'm restrained. I did not come in no games. I give a what the rule is. I feel like I'm going insane. I feel like I'm about to lose. When you a winner, you learn from your losses. We came from the bottom and now we the bosses. The future is yours, so what will you choose? If you give it your all, you got nothing to lose. When you a winner, you learn from your losses. From the bottom and now we the bosses. The future is mine, so what did I choose? Look, I find every day I got something to prove.
Hi, Steve. So thanks for joining us on our first Motorsport Show. Great to have you with us. Obviously, this is for your European audience, so it's glad to give the U.S. perspective, given that NASCAR, has a long and storied tradition in the U.S. with going way back. And obviously you and I go way back as well over the years. So I wanted to kind of give a quick overview of the NASCAR landscape within the US as far as what you have going on for your own operations, plus the relationship with Fox and NBC, which are 2 primary partners.
Yeah, Ken, thanks. Glad to be here. NASCAR is, as you said, a long history in the United States. We run stock car races pretty much 10 10 and a half months out of the year. Seems like all year long sometimes, but 3 major series, the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Gander Outdoor Truck Series, which are pickup trucks racing. We run about 100 events between those 3 series, some of them standalone at smaller tracks, some of them all together at our bigger tracks. And then we have some other series that are smaller local track series, 700, 800, 900 of those events a year. So, but the ones we focus on are the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series, as you said, with Fox and NBC. They've been great partners over the years. Fox has been here since 2021 or 2001 when we redid all the rights deals and put them under one umbrella. And NBC's been in and out a couple of times over the years with Turner and ESPN and everybody else too. So a lot of great support from the broadcasters here, and good relationships with those guys. That a couple more years, I think our contracts go through 2024 before we up for renewal.
Gotcha. So we'll get into the COVID stuff at the end, because I think people have always, maybe we're all talked out on the COVID workflows, but let's talk about, because NBC, so Fox started in the season, you got the Daytona 500 going, a little rainy, then there's obviously the pause, then Fox went, but I want to talk a little bit about NBC right now, because it's sort of unique what they're doing. So maybe talk about how Fox approached their production with the Game Creek truck, and then how NBC took a different approach.
Yeah, Fox, we've all played with the remote production here for a long time, and you know, we have another series, IMSA, that I should have mentioned, it's sports cars that we have the luxury of playing with a little bit, not as quite a high profile, but we started doing the remote production with that series that NASCAR Productions produces for NBC probably 3 years ago, and we're doing 32 to 34 cameras remote back in Charlotte, moving the signals back using AT&T fiber. So we have 10 gig circuits at every track, redundant. That Fox gave them the ability to come in and think about it a little bit different. They use the Game Creek trucks on site that had the cameras, their EVSs, their audio, everything on site. So they put those trucks on site. It's kind of the normal setup what it's had with our trucks from NEP and the Game Creek trucks, and they use our connectivity to connect to their studios here in Charlotte and in LA. So in Charlotte, they put their producer, pit producer, and their commentators in Charlotte to call off of the signals. They put their EVS operators in LA so they could do, in graphics in LA, so they could do remote control of the EVSs, and actually had operators and controllers in LA operating the machines on site wherever their races were. So they did a little bit of a different model that is fun to think about for the future as we get into, I'm sure more and more people down the road will think remote production, we'll always do it anyway, and now COVID gives us a great excuse, but it worked very, very well as to how they put it together. In our sport, Ken, you know, a lot of the announcers live here in Charlotte, so they kept them at home. They didn't have to travel. They got some EVS operators local to LA and graphics that were pretty easy. And they kept the core of the infrastructure intact at the race site, which made everything kind of signal flow just like a normal weekend.
Right. And then the NBC, though, took a little bit of a different approach.
Yeah. And NBC, we looked at it a little bit different with NBC. They brought their trucks and parked them here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway in Charlotte, because again, a lot of the crew and a lot of the announcers live here in Charlotte. So they based them here in Charlotte. They designed more of a small single unit with just cameras and some audio in it, built it up a little bit more temporary, but it's working very well too. They're sending all the signals from wherever the racetrack is back to Charlotte to do their production here in Charlotte, and then they're going out. Utilizing the same 10 gig fiber circuits. It makes some of the clean feeds and dirty feeds and things like that we're moving around a little different, but still everything comes back to site and we distribute from site. So right. They both work out well, just a little different approach.
So I guess their philosophy was that obviously their facility, their home base up in Stamford, Connecticut has been pretty busy with all the sports coming on, especially with the NHL starting up. So I guess from their standpoint, it was hard for them to fit it into Stamford, and they like the idea of being near your crews down in Charlotte, because that's where you guys are based. The talent's there, like you said, a lot of talent's there, a lot of the freelancers there. That was sort of their logic, right?
Well, and it was the crew's talent, everything's here. And when we started talking about this several months ago, Connecticut, New York area was kind of the hot spot of where COVID broke out in the United States. So right. At the time, they weren't sure when they were going to get back in their building. And also, as you said, there's a lot of sports coming online now. They thought about that too. So I think it just made a lot of sense to not try to second guess when they could get back in their facility. Let's just plan on being here in Charlotte. And you know, it's going to be out of the way. It's secluded over on this side of town. So seems to work out. We had the connectivity in place and everything worked well. So.
Sure. So I know that, Dean from F1 discussed recently about, they had some obviously remote workflows that were accelerated given what's going on. And NASCAR's in the same thing. Everybody's in the same thing. Right. So what's your sense when you look at what has been accomplished, as far as what sticks, where are what sticks? What do you see as the benefits of what's going on right now?
Well, I've never been more proud to work for NASCAR as we came back here at Darlington, our first race, and we put a lot of thought and effort with Fox guys and our guys, how to go about it, how to keep it safe, how to compartmentalize the different groups in the garage and the broadcast compound, and people worked outside the track in the tower. But the thing that we've always played with remote broadcasting, and I think everybody has tested it somehow, some way, to some scale. We pushed it a little bit harder than others, but I think that model now it gives you a reason. People had to do it. Right? The Fox guys had to do something. We had to reduce the amount of people on site because of this COVID virus going around, and NBC the same way. We had some limits. We wanted to kind of minimize people coming into towns and traveling, and it forced everybody to look at remote production at large events. And NASCAR is not a small event by any means. You're 50, 60 cameras, 70 cameras, 150 crew people, and to do that on your own takes a lot of planning, and you have to have a good reason. And this was the reason. I think remote production, now we've proven that we can do these shows at scale, different ways, right? The whole, like I do it, everything goes back to my facility. NBC, they set up a separate home base in Charlotte where they moved back to. Mike did his split up different ways, right. The Fox guys. So I think that's what's going to stick out of this, that we now know that we can do this multiple different ways, and it's all the connectivity and the infrastructure when you do it. So I think that's the one thing that sticks out of this.
So I know you and I talked earlier this year about the concerns from a lot of the freelancers and your crewers who are saying, well, this stinks because I love being on the road, but then I know that you mentioned how you kind of gave them a good, you kind of talked them and kind of convinced them and made them see the benefits. What have you seen from your folks in Charlotte who you've seen working locally who aren't on the road? What's been their feedback in their new quote unquote careers?
Well, I think as you said, some people they don't know any different. They have to travel. They want to travel. And like a lot of us, we don't go to the office every day anymore, and you adjust and you adapt. And some people have and some people haven't. I think there's a lot of people who realize there's a different way of doing it. You're going to make some money. Okay, I'm not going to accumulate the American Airlines miles or the Hilton Hotel points miles and things like that, but I get to spend a lot more time here in town. We build up our facilities. And I think people have adapted pretty well to it. You realize there's a different life out there than traveling in a hotel 250, 300 days a year.
Right. So I know that the shows are scaled down a little bit, right? As far as camera complement, were they?
Yeah, we cut it down, and like everything else, we all get hit with budgets, and how do you do things more efficiently and better? And in the end, you come out and you take the opportunity to rethink how you do things, and you cut back a few cameras here, a few cameras there. But on the Fox side, we added drones. Sometimes we had 2 drones flying, so it gave you the opportunity to prove out that the drones work and the coverage works. And they're hard to do at some of our places because you can't fly them over fans. Now we have no fans, we can fly them where we want to and get those great shots. And I think that's something that's going to stick around too, is keeping the drone in place. So I think there's some advantages out of it. You cut a few cameras out that probably nobody notices other than me. Right. Some of the replays, like I said earlier, the replay operators are in LA. They're not the normal guys that are out there every week. I could notice a couple of little things, but the average person didn't. And it hadn't hurt the ratings. It hadn't hurt sales. So I think we're moving on to Europe, who we're talking to, right? They do production a little bit different than we do. And I think it gives us an opportunity to scale things and do it different. You look at different. You have to have opportunity or reasons to rethink how you do things. And this was a good opportunity.
Right. So are there any toys that you want to see kind of added to the mix of for the production going forward? Obviously, you mentioned the drones. Do you think can the drones be here to stay? I know it's an issue because of hopefully fans getting back out there someday. Do you think drones are a keeper?
I think they're here. We've tested them the last couple of years, a couple of events here and there. We did them every race with Fox. I've noticed them on CPS Golf now, and some other things are starting to pop up a little bit more. I think they're here to stay. It gives you a great way to cover the race. And at the end of our race, the the winner does the burnout and the drone's right over it and hovering right when he's getting out of the car. It's a cool shot, and I think that's pretty cool. The one thing that we're pushing for, and I've worked on for a long time, is a camera in every car, connectivity in every car, VR in half a dozen cars maybe. I think that's going to happen pretty quick next year when we come back, or probably the 2022 season. We just have to have more data, more biometrics, more things off the car to tell the story with graphics and data. Good relationship with SMT that does that stuff for us. So I think that's the big thing we're pushing for is, we have a new car coming out, the next gen car in 2022. That's a lot of focus on that for us, and data and connectivity to that car. So that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, I know that the F1 folks obviously take advantage of that data like you wouldn't believe with their stuff.
Well, that's what's given us a lot of ideas, right? They've done it. They have 20 cars in the field, and we have 40. So it's a little bit different, but the same exact thing where we've talked to them about how they do it. And we're trying to push a little bit and get more data, guys. Some great storytelling out there.
Right. It's funny because, the drones is a big issue with the crowds, but then you have F1 with their helicopter, which is like unbelievable.
I've seen that helicopter a few times, and I'm like, holy cow, I can't believe it. But
he is quite the pilot. So
yes, he is.
He can fly, yeah. So as far as so let's go back to the COVID thing, the beginning of that whole discussion. So things were shut down. You did Daytona in the middle of it looks crazy now that you did that in the middle of February, right? You're like, how did you survive that? So, and then you had the pause, right? So then, and you guys were pretty much at the forefront of saying, let's make this happen. So what were those discussions like? And what have been some of the lessons learned?
Well, yeah, we jumped in, and I don't think we missed a beat. We started off with the e-racing online, that stuff, and at the same time doing it just to keep the business going and how to keep fans involved or engaged. Turned very quickly to how to bring people back, and the first thing we had to consider was keep everybody safe. Mike Davis, Fox guys were right there with us hand in hand. A lot of good ideas there, and the first thing we had to do was keep the drivers and the crew safe. So we created that bubble in the garage that if you don't need to be in the garage, you're not going in the garage. And that was first and foremost, because if we knew the drivers were affected, then that's going to shut down the whole sport. So the teams worked very well with us, that we created a bubble at the shop so that people who prepared the car at the shop didn't go to the track. People at the track didn't go to the shop. They agreed with us. They worked on it as much as they could. We weren't even letting media, photographers, the camera guys in the garage at the track. So we created this bubble in the garage that was only the competitors. The other workers were kind of around the garage, even where the officials in the control tower managed the race from. We set up a second booth. So if they came out of the garage, they went to a separate booth in the control tower to manage what they needed to do, talk to the booth who stayed upstairs. So you had the outside ring of people who didn't go to the garage. They stayed up at the control tower, to timing and scoring officials and spotters and things like that. They stayed up there, and we kept the broadcast people separate. Nobody crossed. There was a lot of emphasis on, when we came back, we kept things pretty close to Charlotte. Our first race was in Darlington, and it was just 2 hours away, so we could make it a day trip. And instead of the normal practice and qualifying that we had the days before, we did everything on one day. So we'd show up on Sunday morning, run the race, go home. We came back on Wednesday the next week, did the same thing. And it gave us the opportunity to prove out that we could do a one-day show, and the ratings were good, came back. But it was keeping everybody safe and clean. And we set up some, the screeners as you came on the track was limited how many access points to come into a track, where you had to come in. There were 6 to 8 lanes of screeners. You came in, you had your temperature taken, had to fill out some forms in advance that you hadn't been around anybody showing symptoms of COVID. You hadn't had COVID. So you came in, you got your temperature taken. That allowed you to come in, and you had certain access points on your credential where you could go to the infield, the garage, or the compound. And we tracked it like that. It seemed to work very well.
And so it's interesting because I think the motorsports, you really have to kind of evaluate the whole event. Like you said, you kind of get rid of some of the practices, all these, you got to get rid of the ancillary stuff.
Right.
So have a very honest discussion with everybody. Yeah. Was it difficult to have those conversations where some people pushing back a little bit and saying?
Some people did, and it's like that everywhere. And some of the bigger teams who have social media, camera people, photographers, that they thought they were essential. No, you're not essential. Right. But our president, Steve Phelps, he has not been in the garage area since we came back racing. And if the president of the sport can stay out of the garage area, it says a lot, right? He's done a couple of press conferences and things and things, but he's done them remotely, over the phone, over radios. He went to the media center to do a Zoom call like this, but he has not been in the garage area since this started. And we put it down. We took it from that. If our president of the company and of the sport doesn't go, why do I need to go? Because it seems like the more we all show up, everybody under us wants to show up and say, oh, Steve's there, I better show up too, to make sure Steve knows I'm working. Right. I don't want my people there. We want to keep the sport safe, and we're 2/3 of the way through the season now, and knock on wood, we're doing good, and that's the way we want to keep it. Right,
sure. So as far as the the next step, so what's obviously everything is just sort of day by day. Do you sort of have thoughts on how things are going? I mean, they are going well. You mentioned going to New Hampshire, and I guess here in the U.S. we have a unique challenge. Europeans have the same thing, right, as far as crossing borders and stuff. So can you talk about that a little bit, as far as that dynamic of uncertainty of quarantining for 2 weeks? And
yeah, it's you're right. It's day by day, week by week, and there's always something that pops up. Well, we were in Kansas last week and had 5 races in 4 days. And Saturday, we're supposed to pack up Saturday night, go cross country to New Hampshire in the New England states. And we got word Saturday that they'd put restrictions in place. You had to quarantine for 14 days before you show up. So we were working all day Saturday, just the other day, to maybe we're going to divert to Bristol, Tennessee, because we just came from there, so we know it's a good state. So we worked all day, and we're on the phone with the governor of Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and they gave us a waiver to come in as long as we came in to the hotels, to the track and back, and that's all we can do. Right. And kind of passing through. So they're letting us in some states. New York, we had issues getting into Watkins Glen. They wanted either testing or quarantine. We just decided to move that race down to Florida, the Daytona Beach for our home office, right? And we've just kind of backed away from the testing. One, it's expensive. It's not as accurate as some people think. We're going through the temperature on the forehead or the wrist. And if they won't accept that, we have other options that we can go to other tracks. So, but you never know what's going to pop up, and hot spots are popping up, Florida and Texas and Arizona, and we keep an eye on those. We got a great group that's managing all that. So we're ready to adjust whenever we need to.
Gotcha. So last question. I mean, obviously, a lot of our sponsors watch this, and they're always curious to learn from what you guys are looking for. So what do you mentioned the data earlier. What kind of things are you looking for out of next generation tools, cameras? What kind of things kind of drive your interest?
Obviously the camera angles for the live event stuff. Data coming off, I think, can tell a big story. There's a couple years ago, Mike Davis and I laughing about a lot of times. We play with the 360 stuff that was hot a while back. We think in a race car, F1 does a great job with it. And I think if we can put one in the race car, it's a look you're not going to get in a lot of other sports. It's a really cool look. It's going to be in every car. I don't know, but we can do, like I said, half a dozen of them maybe. Out of our sponsors, Comcast is a big sponsor of ours, and they see the value, Coca-Cola, on what the website brings, what that digital experience, the social experience, that even when we were down for a while not racing, we had the e-gaming going on. We had social media going on. The drivers are putting content out, and such an engagement from our fans there that they help focus on that. That's what their sponsorship now. It's not about the signage at the tracks and the fans seeing a billboard anymore. It's about how can you reach that fan. And our digital platform, the social platform, showed Comcast. They're like, well, we need to double down and focus on this. So they helped us with the digital esports and some messaging on the social platforms. That's what they're seeing the big push on, that there's that captive audience that the motorsports people have that a lot of other sports don't. So they're helping us there. That's where the big pushes come from. Can we get these drivers and crews to help put content out, what they're doing behind the scenes, what they're doing at the shops, what they're doing at the track, what's Denny Hamlin doing in his motor coach, what is he playing video games, or what, because I think even at Darlington, NASCAR, we have set the rain out sometimes, but there's a rain out and all those guys went their motor coach and they started up an impromptu esports session on one of the video games.
Right.
Got a huge audience, and they called it the Rain Out 200 or something. But that drew a lot of people, and those are the things Comcast and these sponsors are looking for: how to keep the drivers engaged and keep the fans engaged with the drivers. So That's what we're looking for, more content from them.
Cool. So last question for you: When you guys came back, can you talk about that day and where that ranks as far as some of your experiences of your career? There's probably obviously your first event yourself as a professional. There was 9/11. You've mentioned that to me. Where did getting back, to Darlington rank as far as, and what was that like emotionally for you and the team?
That was probably had to be one of the highlights of my career, right? I've done a lot of first at tracks overseas, Japan. We did that back in the 90s. The Daytona 500 in February is always a special moment. You come back and you drive through the tunnels, race day. Brickyard at Indianapolis was always an awesome place with the fans and 300,000 people. But when we came back in Darlington, I watched that race and I sat here and waited and waited. And I usually turn in for the pre-race to see if it's raining or what the weather's like, just make sure things are going right and you tune into the race. But I was sitting here on the edge of my seat watching it. I had goosebumps. It was so exciting to watch that. And as I said, I've never been prouder to work for NASCAR as that day, that you knew the work and effort to put in. It wasn't easy. It was weeks and weeks and weeks of planning every day, thinking about every scenario, to know that we came back, did it right, kept everybody safe. And a lot of things have been molded after that, how we did it. But we came back, we did it right, we kept everybody safe. And when they did the national anthem and the Gentlemen Start Your Engine, I had goosebumps, man. It was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I think, just as a fan and watching the racing, you kind of, it was hard, right? Because emotionally, because you're like excited because it's back.
Yeah.
But then in the pit of your stomach, you're still like, is this the right thing? It's amazing to see how difficult this whole situation's been.
Right.
Hopefully we can figure this out in this country, because things are a little screwy right now.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see that everything's going well for you guys, and I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, it is going great, and thank you for calling me. And anytime you need anything, let me know.
Sounds good. Thanks, Steve.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen. Turbocharged insights, and great to hear the emotion of Steve Stum there, saying about the return of NASCAR at Darlington being a career highlight, and rightly so, because NASCAR really were trailblazers in terms of getting motorsport back on air. And also really good to hear about the opportunities that this time has afforded, and the use of drone cameras in particular to get those pristine, spectacular shots. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are racing towards our next session, which will examine the return of MotoGP. SVG Europe's editor Heather McLean has been in conversation with BT Sport's MotoGP Series Editor Kevin Brown. But before we hear from both of them, let's remind ourselves of the mega excitement that is MotoGP.
He's invented something in the final corner, but Lorenzo gets close to the back, and Rossi has beaten him. What a motorcycle race!
I am glad to be part of one of the best races in the history, so people will remember that race in a good way, apart that I lose the race. No?
Rossi comes straight back at the corkscrew. Rossi runs off track and pushes Stoner wide. Stoner runs in wide. Casey Stoner has gone down. Valentino Rossi will take victory in the United States Grand Prix.
That race was a special victory. The battle was furious from the beginning to the end, but I was able to arrive in front.
Crutchlow of Great Britain excels in front of the Argentinian crowd and wins MotoGP for the third time.
That was the last win, and hopefully it won't be my last MotoGP race career win, but it was a good one.
Is he gone? Oh, he comes through and takes the mickey out of Barham. Marc Marquez does it in style down under and takes his 5th win of 2015.
2015 Phillip Island race was a good race too. I mean, a really nice fight against Jorge, Valentino, Andrea, and my last lap I won the race.
What a rider! What a race!
Hi, I'm Heather McLean, editor at SVG Europe, and I'm here today with North One's Kevin Brown, series editor for MotoGP for BT Sport. Hi, Kevin.
Hello there.
Hi. Okay, so as the COVID crisis started spreading northwards through Europe and up towards the UK, what programming were you working on for MotoGP, and how did that change as we started to enter lockdown as well?
Well, it was very difficult at the start of the season because races were due. Well, the season sort of started in March, where we were due to be covering the Qatar MotoGP, which was the first one of the season. Then that was when we first realised that things were going to start to get quite heavily disrupted because some of the teams were there, some weren't. Then some were denied access to Qatar, and then BT took the decision for us not to go and cover the racing in Qatar. We covered it via a world feed from London. But we didn't go to the race, and then it was quite clear that after that the calendar was going to get heavily disrupted. Races started to get postponed, then they became cancelled, and then it became an indefinite change to the calendar, which was we just had to wait and see what happened. So BT Sport were really keen for us to make some programming to keep the motorbikes on the telly and to give the bike fans that subscribe to BT Sport something to watch. So we'd come up with an archive-based series, which was not just running archive races, but to bring a sort of modern take to it, to speak to the riders who were involved at the time with their anecdotes and stories about what went on, but also to analyse the incidents from those races, things that people remember. And that was originally supposed to be through a studio. So it was commissioned, and then come the following week, that was when lockdown really came into effect in the UK. I think Boris Johnson told us all to stay at home on the Monday ahead of the Sunday where we were due to be doing our first programme. So it appeared at that stage like we were in a bit of trouble and we weren't going to be able to do anything. You know, we were left without a sport and no way of covering it in its absence. So but then Jamie Hindhoff, the chief operating officer at BT Sport, sent me an email and said, look, we can't use the studio, but speak to Andy Beale. He's got an idea. And Andy Beale is BT Sport's chief engineer. And he said, look, we've been working on these remote solutions for a little while. Do you fancy kind of putting it into practice straight away? And at that stage, what have you got to lose? You know, we didn't have any other ways of making programming, so we decided to go for it. And it's this solution where we sort of exploded the gallery, the usual TV gallery, which we weren't able to put together physically. We did remotely. We had people in various parts of the country with an EVS operator in West London. We had myself in Norfolk. We had our VT co-ord in Kent. We had graphics in Essex. We had our presenter Gavin in Yorkshire. You know, we had all the elements from various parts of the country, all held together with some clever engineering and some broadband.
Mm-hmm. And the program you're talking about is, of course, The Greatest Race. So
yes,
from the time you spoke to Andy about how are we going to do this to getting it on screen, how long did that take?
Well, it's the Monday evening that I spoke to Andy. In fact, it's about 11:30 on the Monday evening because I think Boris Johnson made the announcement at about 8:30, and obviously there was a flurry of activity between then and Andy and I having the conversation with our production manager, Gabriella. We sort of had this three-way WhatsApp call at about 11:30 that night and just decided to go for it. And then we were on air on the Sunday. So we kind of decided on this solution on the Monday evening. Then we had a busy week where we had to edit enough VT to support 4 hours of live programming. We had some testing on the Friday, rehearsals on the Saturday, and went to air Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. And you know, I was really pleased to say it all came together really well. I mean, the studio cameras were replaced by iPhones on tripods in the presenters' houses. We were busy sending bits of kit to various people's homes via Amazon deliveries. I mean, I think at one point the headsets that people use for their talkback, they were in such demand because so many people at the time were having to do Zoom calls and things like that at home that I think various delivery companies put maximum numbers of what you could order. So people were having to kind of buy their own kit and then engineer themselves. You know, we had lots of phone calls between engineers and people at home just trying to get them set up. And I mean, it just meant everybody had to be extremely resourceful. And I mean, in the first week, we had only one technical problem in that 4-hour program, and that was just that Gavin, the presenter, his phone went into sleep mode during I think the penultimate link in the program. He so I think a phone running out of battery or going to sleep during a link, I'll take that after everything we put together in the space of that week.
Yeah. And then how did you bring fans into the greatest race, and what was their reaction to it?
Well, the reaction was great. It was social media, particularly Twitter, which worked really well. I think suddenly motor racing fans, having had very little to get their teeth into, and what we know about motor racing fans is they love to engage, they love to be a part of what's going on, and I think we saw that particularly with this. As soon as we came back on the air with it, there was a flurry of activity on social media, and we were asking them to vote for their favourite race, which they did in their thousands, which was great. And I think it was on a similar time on a Sunday morning as to when the racing would normally be. So we were kind of directly replacing what would normally be the live action with a live show, which allowed people to get involved. And I think that, you know, they loved the stories. They loved the, you know, hearing from riders who still bear a grudge 20 years later for an incident that happened. You know, I think they enjoyed being a part of that and allowing to put their questions in and to just be a part of the show. So yeah, we saw great activity on social media, and I think it just reminded us all how loyal motorcycle racing fans are and motorsport fans are in general. That they love the sport, they love to get involved, and you know, if you give them something to get their teeth into, then that they will come, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and MotoGP's been back for a couple of weeks now, live, back on the track. So in terms of fans and production, you know, are you going to, or how have you carried on working in this kind of remote fashion now that the sport's back? But also, you know, how are you keeping fans engaged, and are you taking any of those kind of social media elements that you've been using forward into the, you know, traditional way of doing things?
Well, I think the first thing that we need to do with the coverage is to try and take the fans to the event. I always think that's the responsibility of a TV sports production, is to take people to an event they otherwise can't go to, and I think that obviously has its challenges when you can't go to the circuit. We've made the decision not to go to the circuit. It wasn't because we can't. Dorna, the commercial rights holders, have given us a few spaces in the paddock if we wanted to go and cover from there, but it was considered from the outset that we would, you know, that fans can't go to the event, so then neither should we. You know, we will you know, experience the same experiences as the people at home have, and we've set up at Triumph Motorcycles in Hinckley, which has been terrific. But that again is a remote production. You know, we have a presentation hub at Triumph where all of our commentators and presenters are. So we've kept all those guys in one place because it's important for them to be able to interact and to talk to each other and to share information. And we've got our own little setup there. We were quite lucky that Triumph is closed to the public, which means that we could make a bit of a mess of the place and put all of our engineering and all of our kit in to make it all work. And we've got a very nice looking set which has got all the historic motorcycles in it, and a lovely big projector screen, which that's been a big success because it's allowed us to, when we do two-way interviews with sites with the racetrack, we can put the rider or the team boss or whoever's talking to us into the projector, which gives that feeling of bringing the subject into the studio. And I think we can also put lots of the international feed into that big projector, which it always feels like there's something of the event in the studio. You know, we're not completely shutting ourselves off from it. So I think that's been quite an important part of it, to be able to do that. But the remote production has remained exactly as it did with the greatest race, that we have home workers and we're restricting the number of people who actually go into any kind of studio. Because, you know, BT from the outset have always said that their number one priority is safety of all of the staff, and of course, COVID protocols are in place everywhere, but the safest place for everybody is still at home. So if we can allow them to work at home, which we still have the engineering and the technical ability to do, then we've continued doing that. And the first 2 weeks were really successful. We were we were on air for 20 hours each weekend with practice and then qualifying and then the racing, and pretty successfully. I think we're very pleased with that. And obviously the social media engagement with people at home has continued and will continue, and and I think people are just pleased to see some bikes back on the track.
Yeah. And what's been the biggest challenge for you and your team, from a workflow perspective or personally in working in this way?
I think obviously losing eye contact can be a shame, but I mean it's something we've all had to work with. Everybody's had to work with in the current climate, haven't they? Being able to actually see somebody when you're offering up instructions or feedback or anything like that is less easy. I think personally, as the producer of the program, my talkback's very open to everybody, which means that talkback has been busy, and at the end of a weekend, you can feel like you've had lots and lots of voices in your head all weekend, so that can be a challenge. And it's a challenge that we'll have to get used to. But also, we need to find new ways of mitigating these things. It's just because it's a different way of operating. It doesn't mean it's the right or wrong way of doing it. It's just a different way of operating to cope with the circumstances we're in. And I think certainly all of us are having to get used to being as disciplined as we can on talkback. I mean, everybody understands that we have to be like that, but it doesn't mean people are doing it wrong. It's just we have to maybe come up with new processes to cope with the fact that we can't all talk at the same time. And if we give feedback, maybe it's better to do it on video calls rather than on the phone, because it can sound less aggressive if you're telling somebody you don't like something, or if you do it, when you can actually see them. So I think that there's loads of things that we're having to get used to, but I think we've all proved we can be quite agile and quite we can adapt quite well to new circumstances, as the whole world's had to do over the last few months.
And then last question for you. As paddocks start to open up a bit more, do you think remote production with less crew on site and people working from home, is this here to stay, or what will change?
Yeah, that was happening anyway. Every broadcaster's got a commitment to sustainability, I think, and BT Sport are absolutely huge on that. It's we need to burn up less aviation fuel. I think we all buy into that and know that that's the case. I think it certainly accelerated some of the processes. There are other production processes that need to catch up, and I think that it's certainly it's a migration that we're all expecting to do. I think across all motorsports, across all broadcasters, I think everybody wants to do things in the most sustainable way they can. I think this has sort of forced us into investigating a lot of those things a lot more quickly. And while I still believe that it's right that the presentation team are in the paddock, they're our way of bringing the fans into the paddock and showing them what it's like, and showing them what it would be like if they were in that paddock. I think to bring the event into people's living rooms, I think you still need that on-site presence. But in terms of the technical side of things and reducing the numbers who are getting on planes, I think this is definitely something that is in the process of happening and will continue to happen for sure.
Thank you both, such fascinating insights, and great to hear how Kevin and North One and BT adapted so quickly and with such innovation and creativity with the greatest race, and they continue to do so with their mantra of taking fans to the race and bringing the riders into the studio through that projection screen at Triumph. So yeah, as Kevin said, lucky that Triumph is shut at the moment and we are having the great coverage that they put on. Okay, it is time for our final session, in which Gravity Media's Senior Technical Project Manager Ryan Campbell talks about the return of Formula One and how he sees that coverage evolving in the future.
So basically, it all started with a cup of tea with Deborah Craven back in 2018 in Brazil. She'd seen our work with Sky on the F1 with the pods over the years, bringing Sky into the remote world with Gordon and the team over at Sky, which was a hugely engaging process. And she was tasked with putting together a very small crew of people to deliver a highlights package, obviously with Sky having exclusivity in the UK market. There was a license agreement between Sky and Channel 4 to keep some F1 on free-to-air broadcasting, and that's hence where Channel 4 came in with Whisper, who eventually partnered with Gravity Media to bring online a small highlights flyer pack consisting 2, sometimes 3 cameras, and literally 2 racks of kit in a porter cabin, linked back through to London to be able for them to put together and package as live cameras in with Formula One footage to roll out as a highlights package for an hour and a half on a Sunday. So that was where the project started. It's done in essence in a very lightweight solution because of the cost of air travel and the cost of freight that would be cost prohibitive for the budget of something like a Channel 4 project to move forward with having an on-site presence. So what we took is the tech that we'd innovated over the years with the RF side of things, the way we collect the signals in a very large area up and down the pit lane and the paddock on a Formula One at the circuit, and essentially just took the best bits out of that we were using on the Sky project, and deployed it to the Channel 4 project with Whisper. But yes, it was very much a lightweight solution that we had to make sure would travel and be resilient and allow Whisper to tell their story through Channel 4. So I rebuilt the system at the start of this year to save more weight. We went to Australia, we set everything up. 2 of the McLaren team members came down with COVID, and we were all out for a team dinner on the Thursday night. We got word at that point that we had to pack up and go home. So at that point, as we all experienced, was quite a long extended period of change, starting off with quite a long extended period of nothing. So now we're back up and running, but it is a very different environment. We have so many rules, and I think I was tested 4 times up at Silverstone over the last week. So you have to take in mind how long the tests take to come back. It's not just about the tech. It's not just about having a solution. It's about making sure the right people are in the right place at the right time. And if there is someone who, God forbid, does come down with it, there's a contingency plan. So there's not only resilience in the kit, there's resilience in the crew that need to be factored in. And it really has, access-wise, changed the way we do things dramatically. And we really do rely on the RF system super heavily to pick up signals from behind garages. For example, Lewis Hamilton had just come out of the driver briefing with Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, and we had 5 minutes left of programming and just happened to be hanging around the back of the Mercedes garage. Rosa pulled Lewis over, his Lewis Hamilton's manager, and we got Lewis for the last 5 minutes of the Channel 4 program, which was just really, really good television and great to be able to pick up those signals and not have to, well, it was live and we had 5 minutes left and we got it. And it really shows the strength of the system that we managed to roll out, and with the challenge of less crew as well, because we were only, I think we had roughly 40 odd accreditations last year for the Channel 4 show, which did have on-site production. This year we had 19 passes total. That was presentation, engineers, cameramen, everybody, production team. So we really had to think of ways that we could come up with the sort of show that needed to be told and the sort of story that needed to be told to be able to get all those signals back to the Ealing facility and then off to air. So it all happened and it all went well, and we're very happy with the end result. Yeah, massively. So I think race 2, we were doing a presentation facility from the Silverstone Experience Centre, and at that point, we realized that we don't have the ability to collect any of the feeds that used to be available at the circuit. So all the onboard cameras, the timing pages, everything would now only exist in their discrete nature at Biggin Hill, at FOM's headquarters, Formula One's headquarters. So we very quickly had to build and deploy a rack to Biggin Hill that we weren't even allowed inside. So this thing had to be plug and play. So we strapped it up in a day. I drove the van down there, handed it off to the guys from Tata and FOM. They plugged it all up. I went back up, drove back up to Silverstone, got onto my laptop, hooked it up to the VLAN that we were using, which was a managed network through Tata. Linked up to all the equipment, checked all the multi-viewers, checked the switching of the router that we were using, and it all worked. It was brilliant. It was fantastic. But we had to very quickly adapt to this new environment, and we've used that system ever since to choose and select and multi-view, picture-in-picture, what feeds we need to collect. We send the onboards down to Ealing. We bring some timing pages up to us to the circuit, so the commentary team have all the information they need to commentate on the race. And we have a couple of switchable feeds that we can choose what we need. So it really has accelerated. And for Formula One, I've just had to really pull in about 2 years worth of deployment of this remote production and distill it down to a very short space of time. They've done a great job. They've done a fantastic job. Trevor Turner and all the team down at Biggin Hill have really pulled all the stops out. But we've had to modify the way that we do things, and it changes week by week. I'm going down to do a recce tomorrow at the McLaren Technology Centre to work out how we do a 4-camera OB from there if we can't be on site. So, it does change week by week. And remote production there's many different forms of it, and there's many different ways and reflections of remote that people employ to do a job. And there's not one way that's the right or the wrong way. It just depends on the cost of bandwidth, the type of equipment you'll use, what CapEx cycle you're in as well. If and nobody's spending any money on equipment at the moment, so you have to make the best with what you have, and that's really what we're doing at the moment, is making sure that we let Channel 4 tell their story through Whisper, but with the equipment that we have and using it to the best of its ability with the least amount of crew. So there's a few challenges there. Well, that's a good question. I mean, I see all kinds of things on the Instagram channels that I check out, which I have quite a few. Formula One, Robo Race, Formula E. There's so many different things. The esports that we've seen over the lockdown, which you watch a bit. I mean, I wasn't a massive fan of it, but it was really cool to actually see the engagement that they were getting over that period when you just could not have people racing around a track. But looking at the Formula One, I mean, the Formula One guys are really working hard on the graphics as well to tell a different story, and they're innovating as time goes on. So there's small things that can happen within the sport, then there's brand new sports all entirely. There's the robo race thing really excites me. I don't know what it is. I'd just love to see a fully autonomous vehicle going around that track as fast as mechanically possible, because the only limitation is the human at the moment. So, it might just be a side thing, but it's something I'd kind of like to see. But yeah, look, as far as motorsport goes, another thing I'd love to see, and maybe this is one for the Formula One guys to check out, is to take the telemetry that's on the cars, pump it into the game, and have people at home racing real time, the guys on track. Inversely, taking augmented realities of those cars driving in a virtual sense and placing them virtually on the track. So you could, for example, take the best esports Formula One driver and you could place him on a track with the other drivers. That'd be really cool. I'd love to see that.
Thank you to Ryan and to Gravity Media, and I will totally echo his thoughts. I was watching Channel 4 coverage at the weekend, and Steve Jones just saying, now we've got Lewis Hamilton, and having that live aspect, that part of live television that we love, that sense of immediacy that is still coming to us as fans of motorsport, despite productions and broadcasters having to work in very controlled scenarios. The checkered flag, ladies and gentlemen, is now out. And that brings us to the end of the race, and what a race it was. Some standout moments. Well, I think it's the fact that this has been such a global event. If you think of Formula One, we've spoken to Dean and to Carl and Ralph, who've been in Silverstone, Munich and the south of France, respectively, ahead of the 70th anniversary of Formula One this weekend. Then we went across the pond to speak to Steve Stum and all things NASCAR. And then we've heard from Kevin Brown in Norfolk in MotoGP ahead of their this weekend in the Czech Republic in Brno, which leads me to say a massive thank you to all of our speakers and, of course, to our title sponsor, LiveU. I'm also going to say a massive special thanks to the team at Sky Germany. Simon, I'm going to say a special name check here because you've been brilliant on this platform that we've been operating, vMix. So thank you. So some upcoming dates for your diary. SVG Europe, here we go. The Women Wellbeing and Resilience events is on the 13th of August. And SVG Europe Sports Production and Technology Summit is from the 1st to the 17th of September. So please check the website for all the details. So that is it. Until we meet again, stay safe, enjoy your motorsport coverage, and thank you for watching.